Hey, welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast.
Welcome.
Man, we have missed you.
Yeah,
We've missed you.
it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. It has.
Yeah.
We've been through the holiday season. We've come out the other side, and we are on episode 99.
For you math junkies out there, that's one less than 100.
We have kind of teased and talked about a little surprise that's coming on episode 100, and that will be coming out probably in the next 2 weeks or so.
We'll see about that.
But yeah, we're working on it.
It'll come out around the end of January, beginning of February or so.
We are going to do a little bit of kind of a Kingsway tradition today. Mm-hmm. So maybe you've been around Kingsway for a little while. Maybe you're new. One of the things we do, one of the first Sundays of the year, we're actually doing it the second Sunday of the year this year, mainly because
it was just so close. Christmas was on a Saturday. That just messed everything up.
But we're doing it on the 9th this year, and it's basically what we do is we walk through a section in Joshua chapter, I think it's 6, anyway, I can't remember it right now, where the Israelites actually finally make it into the promised land.
Yeah.
And as they cross the Jordan and the ark goes before, the waters part, very similar to when they crossed the Red Sea with Moses, and the presence of God goes and stands in the center of the water, and they actually walk over on dry land. But before they enter the land, God has them do this really cool thing where they take a rock from the center of the Jordan and they make an altar to remember what God had done, brought them through the desert, brought them out of Egypt, prepared a way, and remembered his faithfulness. And then they were supposed to come back and look at that. So anytime their kids asked about it, they would tell them these stories. And so what we do as a church is we reflect and we look back and we build an altar. Using the faithfulness of God on kind of these cue cards / kind of note cards, and allow those to kind of be a visual representation of the rocks that God has brought us through and now pulled out of the center of kind of this last year.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful. It's really good. It's fun to see that God's not just working in your own life.
I've been at other churches where they've done like our year in review, like we had fun at this event and whatever. And this is like that, but way more, not just sentimental. Sentimental is like, it's important to me.
Yeah.
It's way more like spiritually sentimental.
It is. And I think it's very communal.
Yeah.
I think it connects people to kind of, because they'll have some tough things that they went through. And God, I can remember some of the ones would be like, somebody so-and-so got sick, but God showed his presence or remained faithful, or he provided peace, or so-and-so died and God has brought us through. Like, it's not always just like God healed my dog. Like, you know, it really is. And not that I don't like Fido. I'm just saying, like, it's not always just the neat, tiny, perfect bows on everything that's put up there. You know, there are lots of things that are even still open-ended that God's continuing to show. And it's been a tradition now that I think we're in the 8th or 9th year of doing it. And so something people come to expect, almost like it's a Kingsway tradition to kind of do it, which we don't have a ton of, but we have a few that mean a lot, and this is definitely one of them. So we want to do something similar today on our podcast.
Yeah. This is, I think, the first podcast version of this.
Yeah.
Where we're going to look back, because we've only existed for like a year or two.
I think it's most. 2 years. Not even quite. I don't think it's 2 full years.
Yeah. But we're going to take a look back at the podcasts from this year specifically. Talk about each of our 3 favorite podcasts or podcast series and why they were so special to us or impactful to us.
Yeah. So, you know, a little bit of a cheesy connection to Sunday mornings, but I think also a way for you, the listener or the watcher, to maybe check out some content and go to some good stuff. Hit the highlights.
In case you missed it from this past year, or you saw the title and you didn't know if you wanted to dive that deep into whatever. You can hear a little bit about it now.
I really liked, you know, we've only spent the last 10, 15 minutes really thinking about it, but I've been thinking about this since we discussed it earlier today. And it's one of those, like, I very quickly go to like some really powerful, fun moments that have had impact on some people. So I guess I'll start off with mine, one of my 3, I should say. It was actually one that I think spurred a couple really cool things. Some lifelong decisions. But in episode 51, we kind of defined baptism. You remember that?
Yeah.
And we had this really good discussion around, what baptism is, what it's not, what it sometimes has been led to believe. And then I thought we did a great job of just kind of talking about the power of what's in it when it's done in the right way. And it was a simple podcast. I'm looking here. It's only 45 minutes, which if you're talking about a subject that large in 45 minutes, I mean, we probably have an intro, so it's probably more like 35. But it helped a few people in our church actually come to the conclusion of like, I need to be baptized. Like, and it's not a dogmatic thing. It's much more of an invitational thing that God has done into a community. And, the language we used, and I don't know if you remember this, it's more like marriage language, where you have already committed your life. You've already told the person that you're in, but then there's this like ceremonial moment where the internal, like, connection, the internal thing that you've already decided is externally kind of expressed for others to see. And it's the communal moment where everybody kind of comes to welcome and comes around and kind of all recognizes it.
It's such a cool and such a big topic. And it's those kind of podcasts, the baptism one, there's a communion one. Mm-hmm. There are a few other ones. Those kind of topics that are like deep faith discussions, but also something all of us engage with throughout our Christian lives and Christian walks. Like those are really fun conversations for me. I think kind of on the same track, one of my favorite podcast series, it wasn't a series for like 30 episodes, and then we came back to it twice, back to back, but was the Atonement episode. So it was right next to the baptism one. It was like 50 or something like that, was our first Atonement
50.
episode.
You're right.
Look at me, photographic memory.
Yep.
Not really. It's the Atonement, something we like in a lot of church practice. We talk about enough, like Jesus died, therefore blah blah blah, and like it's just like rolled over so quickly. So I loved getting to sit there and unpack it a little bit, and not only unpack like what we already think about the atonement and how much deeper we can go with that vein, but also like all these different ways people have summarized the atonement and different emphases people put on it and different things they've attached to it. So we would attach the cross to how we got saved through Jesus. But like different early Christians would attach his victory over death or him being the new Adam and his righteousness as our saving thing rather than the cross as our saving thing. And so just being able to just play with the idea of the cross and help see it in different lights and see it for all it's worth.
Yeah, and I remember what you were just talking about. It's like I think I use the illustration, but you quickly were like, yes, it's similar, but it's like a diamond, and you're just turning it, and the light is reflecting in slightly different ways. It's not like you're changing what Jesus has done.
It's not a different diamond now.
It's just new at this perspective or new at this angle. Yeah, much like love is to a 2-year-old versus a 90-year-old. Their understanding of what love is hasn't changed, but it's grown in its concept, so not necessarily fully changed. It's just grown in its understanding.
Yeah, they both look at something and call it love, and one would have way different reasons for it than the other, but it's the same thing at 2 and at 90.
So I think the other episodes, 68 and then 70, we break it down.
Yeah.
You do, I think, a great job. We brought John Coward in 68 and talked about it from a legal standpoint. And
because
really
that's the way most people understand it. Jesus died for my sins, therefore I'm forgiven.
Yep.
It's very legal, very courtroom.
Well, and it has even like a kind of restitution, kind of mentality where it's like the debt is paid in full type thing.
And when you say debt and paid, that's legal.
Yep.
That's it's if you didn't watch that one specifically.
Yeah, 68.
It was basically 2 or 3 pages in a book where a guy laid out like, okay, so you're going to think about it legally. Mm-hmm. So did Jesus pay a debt or was it a punishment?
Ooh.
Like, because a debt is like, you have this many less dollars than you should because of what I did. So I'm going to make sure you get this many more dollars, even if I have to borrow it from my uncle or something. But a punishment is like, I can't borrow my uncle's 5 years in prison.
Yep.
Like, anyway, it was, so we had him to talk
and then we talked about in 70 about the Jewish sacrificial system. Yeah. And that was even a fun discussion. I highly recommend if you just if you're curious and you want to get a little deeper, you just break down, on a shallow but very, very effectively understandable level, some of the ways that the atonement happened before Jesus, kind of the atonement of the people and relationships, and even with God, of individuals.
Yeah, the way people tried to overcome their sin and their own barriers to relate to God, and how Jesus walks through all those same steps.
Yep.
To help us
He uses it as a bridge for them to understand his fullness of the atonement that he provides. It's with God, with others, and with him, and with ourselves. It's a beautiful, those 3 episodes are
They're
cool.
So good.
That's why we came back and talked about them. Shifting gears a little bit, I'm going to go over to, we did a lot of serious conversations like that around good topics and deep theology that I felt like we were able to kind of dip our toe into sometimes and dip out. But we also had some fun. And one of my favorite podcasts that has deep meaning to me was with my sister about Harry Potter.
Yes.
And it's one of those that like I knew this is what I was going to want to do.
If you didn't watch it, please watch it. It's one of my favorites too.
It's episode 93, not that long ago. Harry Potter is something that I think I could talk about for a while. They just had the special over Christmas where they brought the cast back and talked through everything and how they were young kids and they grew up together, and just a really fun walk down nostalgia. But at the same time, reading the books and understanding kind of the plot line, it felt very similar to Lord of the Rings, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, kind of Chronicles of Narnia feel. Yeah. And it just has some really deep ties to selfless love, defeating evil. And I just love that concept to my core, and the way they play it out, and the friendships that they elevate, and the characters that they choose to expand on. I feel like Harry Potter got a bad rap. And I just was trying to not fully rescue it, but at least bring a little bit more of like, do you really get this? I feel like it's a really neat tool for parents and for potentially educators to use as a gateway to talking about, why does this feel so good and so right? It seems similar to somebody else I know starting with a J, and just the story has.
I can't remember if it was you talking about reading Narnia to your kids or Sky Jitani, and I'm pretty sure it's
Sky Jitani.
Yep. A guy on another podcast I love, and he was talking about reading the Narnia books to his kids when they went to bed. Somebody's at the gate territory. I can almost say that word for word, but coffee's hitting my brain. He was talking about reading that to his kids. And they got to the end, and I don't want to spoil it, but there's a Jesus-like character who's a lion, a very Jesus-like way to represent a Jesus-like character. Anyway, and they finished the book, and his kid was like, "Man, I wish Aslan was real." And that's the biggest setup for Sky, who's a pastor, to be like, "Well, Aslan isn't, but the character he was based on." And it's Jesus and whatever, and for how much I think parents when I was growing up nitpicked Harry Potter for all these little things that totally missed the point and weren't big in their world at all. For how much they nitpicked it had that same thing. You could look at, now it wasn't as direct and obvious of a thing, but
especially in the movies, if I'm being real. But
you could look at so many different characters and be like, man, that guy looks like Jesus right now. He's not, but he's doing something that looks like Jesus a lot.
And there's so many conversations, and I don't want to expand too much, but Dumbledore and Harry have some of the most, you could take it, cut it, and put it in like a sermon, and no one would know it's from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
There's this evil guy doesn't know this ancient magic that's the most powerful of all. And you're like, oh, what's that? No, it's love.
Yeah. Sounds interesting.
Sounds interesting. Oh, your downfall is that you didn't know what love was.
Yeah.
And then what's the way that evil is ultimately defeated? Like I alluded to earlier, it's a selfless act of love is what truly defeats evil.
Yeah.
And an ultimate one.
Yeah.
An ultimate one that only comes from one place that saves everyone.
Yeah.
There's just too many ways that I feel like
just
that
so
exact conversation. What was your fun one? I know there's tons to choose from.
Honestly, so this is half fun, but it was watching The Chosen for the first couple episodes. It I had such low expectations. I'm so sorry if you love these movies, but I have never loved Christian movies like Fireproof and Courageous. Gotta admit, I haven't even seen those two, but there have been others I've seen that have made me think like I don't like Christian movies. And so I had such low expectations, and the sheer joy of watching those first few episodes. When I look back at our podcast review episodes of the Chosen episodes, I'm like.
And we have a whole playlist of those, playlist of those, because we've watched all 3 seasons that are out currently.
2 seasons.
2 seasons. No, there's 3. Pretty sure it's 3.
If there's 3, then I haven't seen.
You haven't seen the new one
because the second one ends at the Sermon on the Mount.
Oh, no spoilers.
Pretty sure there are only 2.
2 seasons.
Anyway,
2 seasons. He's right.
Yep. So we watched all, I think, 16 episodes or maybe 18 or something like that of The Chosen and reviewed them. And those first 3 blew me away. And then I just knew what to expect. They didn't have to set up characters.
No, they didn't
as
drop
much anymore.
or anything. It's just I get what
but
you're saying.
But it was just continually good throughout. But those first 3 episodes, I was just floored.
Jesse Delk just preached for us on Sunday and played a clip from the end of season 1 on Sunday. And I hate to say this because it's like weird, but like the guy that they have playing Jesus is the best Jesus I have ever met or seen depicted.
Of all the phony Jesuses.
Oh my gosh,
kidding
man.
about that word, but
I just couldn't. I can't believe it. Every time I watch the scenes, he's so good. And I hate the idea that something's gonna happen to just destroy him personally. And I pray please don't let that happen. But he is the best human Jesus. The humanity that is in this man just bleeds through.
The way I summarized it is, in all the other movies and TV and whatever I've seen of Jesus, they're trying to balance him being God, him being righteous, and him being man, somebody that sinners and tax collectors and kids at different times would want to hang out with. And all the other ones are like, nah, he's just God. He's not even using his feet. He's just floating above the ground, a foot off the ground, floating through the air. And in these, he's like, there's some kids like near where he's camping, and he starts making a bunch of fart noises to make them laugh. I'm like, it would take a lot for those other 2 righteous Jesuses to make kids laugh.
Dude, that episode is the one that got me, and I know we talked about that. That's episode 3, and it's with kids, and it was the one that I went, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. If you haven't watched The Chosen, go watch The Chosen. If you want to watch our reviews along with the podcast, I think that would be fun, and I agree with you.
Their reviews as like show watchers, they're also reviews from us as Bible people.
Yes.
Like maybe you're a Bible person too, but like our Bible college background and some of the historical background. Even I mentioned in there, you can watch Matthew counting on his knuckles instead of his fingers.
Yep.
Which is a very Jewish way and ancient Jewish way to count. I caught it and like some other like small historical detail stuff.
Totally nerding out. Yeah. I love it.
Nobody cares. It matters to no one. But I saw it.
Well, and I mean, that kind of leads us to our last, kind of thing to go back and check out. And this is going to be a little bit shorter of a podcast, but it's kind of intentional to kind of steer you to other ones to go and check out. And my last one and the one that I think had the deepest impact was we had the honor to sit down with Shane Wood, Dr. Shane Wood, and talk to him about his last book, which I know he's about to release another book and he's working very hard on. But his first book and his last book was Between Two Trees. And we got to go down to Ozark Christian College, and they allowed us to use their podcast and kind of, I guess they call it media room. And we recorded an awesome podcast with him, and he was very gracious and honest and vulnerable. And it was just
good.
It was so good, Ryan. And I know you started the conversation. We were able to get him to be able to meet with us, but his book is intense. It's like helpful.
So he's a Bible college professor. He has a doctorate in the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
Which is like a New Testament, but also like a historian kind of degree.
Yeah.
And he also has had a lot happen in his life, and he's gone through a lot of counseling, and like is very emotionally raw,
and rightly
all at
so.
the same time.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so
good. The book just does such a good job of introducing a concept about who God is and what this whole story of the Bible is about. And then like right around chapter 4, I think, or like chapter 5, it does this great job of putting flesh to what's actually he's talking about by using his own personal testimony.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good. And it's one of those that I know we've had several people in my life, my family, and in our church watch that episode, immediately went out and bought the book and read it.
Yeah,
and
including your dad.
Including my dad.
Who then preached on it.
Yes, and then preached on it as a series. And so I know it had a deep impact beyond just the podcast, and that those that choose to check out the resource and stuff, it really was an effective one. And for mine, I think that was my favorite podcast of the year.
For my last one, I don't know if this was my favorite or
I don't know if
one
there's
of the
an order.
others.
I can just clarify that
But
that's probably
one of my favorites, and it totally surprised me, was the podcast that was like an overview of the life of David.
Yeah.
I walked into that super nervous. I was like, I don't remember anything, like whatever. And I walked in, and just what like flowed out of us too, and our memory of Scripture, knowledge of Scripture. I felt like it was a good picture of David as a person through his whole life, a good like telling of his story, and I don't even know what to say about it. It was just good.
I remember like thinking we should do this with other people, but then both of us were like, we'd have to know more than we know about some of these other people. But you're right. David is such a central theme to a lot of gospel stuff, Jewish stuff. You and I are, you're pretty well read. I mean, this is your background. You enjoy.
I'm pretty well book bought. I can say that.
You at least read 1/3 of every book here.
Maybe.
No, but you are. You're intelligent. You're academic. You're pursuing a master's degree. You're curious about, and I'm that way too. And so I think what flowed out of us in that particular podcast what you're talking about, it was a fresh, fun, good conversation. And now we're studying 1 Samuel as a church, and I'm excited to continue that discussion, which we're going to pick back up in February here on Sunday mornings. But I think you're right. That was a good one.
It was so good.
It's a really good one. Well, I know there's plenty others we could mention. There's plenty others we could talk about, but maybe in the comments or an email you want to send us your favorites or ones that you're hoping to see more like. Maybe you liked The Chosen and you have an episode that you would like us to know or to say, hey, this was my favorite and here's why. Always interested in your comments, and if you want to put a podcast in there, we'll give you a shout out for your favorite episode of the podcast.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
If you're a fan, sorry, not their podcast.
Don't put anybody else's podcast. We don't want to see it.
You can always like and subscribe if you feel like it would be helpful, or leave us a review on any of Apple Podcasts or Android.
You can also now rate us on Spotify.
Hey.
Or something.
Give us a good rating.
You can do that. Yeah.
Like I said, we have a special surprise coming for you. It might be a little bit of time, but when we come back, it's going to kind of be fresh and new. Yeah. So got some plans for this next year. Excited to see those happen. All new
for
books.
The background.
Yeah, we're just changing all the books. No, it'll be good. Well, I hope you had a happy Christmas and a Merry New Year. And and I hope you have a great and glorious day in the Lord. We'll see you guys later.
See ya.